Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we are taking a look at the Racer KL EX90 from FPV Model. Featuring Dragonfly branded 7500 kV motors, 2-inch gem fan props, the MicroSwift CCD camera, 25 milliwatt 48 channel VTX, F3 flight controller with an OSD, 12 amp 4-in-1 ESC, XT30, bottom plate is 2 millimeters, top plate's probably 2 millimeters too. Arms are 7 millimeters wide, does appear to be 90 millimeters. Bottom plate is chamfered. Mine weighs 73.2 grams. It does come with this carrying case. It doesn't fit with the props on, and 2 sets of props. There's not much I can say about this. This is a really good model at a pretty good price point. Even if you're not someone who's well versed in the quadcopter arena, I think you'll find that this price point at under $200 is pretty good. You know, you've got a quality camera here that's going to allow you to fly in a lot of different lighting conditions, stuff that is way more challenging typically in micros when we use those CMOS cameras. We've got some really nice and smooth and powerful motors. They included a quality set of these gem fan props. You can bend these things all up. If you look very closely, you're probably going to find some waves in mine. I think its biggest drawback is this VTX is really exposed. You know, it's only 90 millimeters, so there's not a lot of space to put a VTX, but I still think they could have come up with something. What I have done, I took it off for the review, is I just have a piece of electrical tape and I just ran it over the top to make sure I could protect that if I were to come down on the top. I think if you're flying around cement, you better be really careful, because it's going to damage something up here if you come in upside down. It's just bound to happen. This will help to protect us to a certain degree. It creates a, well, that's not a very good example. Let me get it this way. So you can see that it creates a little bit of a difficulty if whatever you've got is really flat. But if you come down on a rock or any uneven surface, this area is going to get hammered and probably end up making you sad. I do think this VTX isn't great. I noticed a lot more breakup flying this vehicle than flying other vehicles that I have that are using a linear and WIMP antenna. I'm not against those. I just don't think this VTX is very good. And 25 milliwatts, that'll bother some people, but I fly a lot with it, and I don't have nearly the breakup with other 25 milliwatt video transmitters as I did with this one. And that kind of hampers the experience. But of course, as you've seen already, and as you'll see in the next flight video, it's kind of in your face. In the goggles, of course, it's not as noticeable, but still, I noticed it when I was flying, and I thought, whoa, my VTX isn't working very well. I think they did a nice job. One other thing that I think is its big drawback is it's got MWOSD, which is on this chip right back here. And so you've got no port on the board where you could plug in an FTDI adapter to make any changes. So I think that's a swing and a miss for me, because configuring the OSD, if you're going to include it, let us use it how we want to. I know we'll be able to figure out a way. We'll probably have to get an Arduino, and we'll have to solder on some wires and connect it to the Arduino to get it to be able to program the firmware that's on the OSD. But, you know, it's so much easier now. I don't know why you would bother. I just don't. I think that MWOSD responds slower on the sticks when you're trying to change things. It's kind of quirky. Sometimes you have to find the exact right middle stick spot in order to make it activate the next thing. So I'm not a fan of that, and I think including it was a little bit of a miss. I do like the fact they included an OSD, and those that don't like OSDs, you're going to have to go to a lot more work. I did hear that someone was able to customize the firmware in order to, I think it might have been Albert even, to where it didn't have, or you could customize everything, but the where it says fly color on there, he wasn't able to change that. I think that might have been Albert that said that. Another slight drawback is this camera angle is fine for me, but if you're less experienced or you just want something different, you may find that this camera angle is too much or too little. Either way you go, and that's kind of disappointing because this is all we got. So you're either going to have to measure this thing up and print your own if you have that ability, or maybe you're going to have to get the X-Acto out and start doing some carving. The camera does fit nice and tight in there. I've had a lot of crashes. I was a little bit worried that the screws would end up stripping out somehow in a fantastic crash. They did a nice job of printing this to where we are protected down here instead of just having it flat right down through here to where that whole outer edge, if that wasn't there, our camera would really be exposed. But it's not, because they printed that little lip on there. So that was good in my opinion. You can see mine is well loved. I've got grass all over it. I've been flying it a lot. I've actually had this longer than you might think. I got one right away. One of you suggested that I get one for the review, and I thought it was a good idea myself. Unfortunately, I did several other reviews while I was just enjoying this one. I think it's a good one. I'm sure I'm going to fly this one a lot more, especially on 3S. It does fly 2S, of course, as well. It's very interesting that now that a few of these are out, that FPV Model on their website is now publishing PIDs. So you don't have to necessarily guess so much or go through your own PID tuning, so that's a benefit. You are going to have to put your own receiver on, so even if you buy this model, it's almost ready to fly. It's not ready to fly. You're going to have to get your iron out and do a little bit of work there to get your receiver going. Overall, I'm really happy with this vehicle. I think there's just a couple of things we needed to tweak just to make it, you know, that perfect micro for me, but we're getting closer, and I bet we're going to see a lot more micros with the Micro Swift or the Foxier version of the Micro Swift. I think this is the direction we need to head. We need to head in a direction that allows us to fly comfortably in all sorts of different lighting conditions. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.